Welcome to episode 3 of PCDA TV. I'm your host, Robbie Carroll. Tonight, we have some very special guests with us. I'm really excited to introduce our 2 new members of staff that we've got. We have Maren Carroll. She is the Director of Sports Medicine for Pre-College Development Academy. And Greg Teller. Greg is the... I've lost your title already, Greg. Where are we? What is it again, mate?
They're unimportant anyways. Rob, how about the Director of Performance? Sounds good to me.
Sports Performance. There we go. Perfect. So it's a good start, that, isn't it, guys? Teleprompter's broken. Let's just say that. Okay. Fire the typist. Let's start with ladies first. Maren, you have a great last name. Just have to say, I had to share it with you when we got married. But tell us a little bit about yourself. I know everything, obviously, but we want to hear from you about you and your experiences.
For the record, it took about 1.5 years before I let you share your last name with me after we got married. Just want to put that out there. Hi, guys. My name's Maren. I'm originally from Colorado Springs. I have a bachelor's degree in health and fitness, another bachelor's in athletic training, and I have my master's degree in kinesiology and exercise science. Most of my athletic training background is with the wonderful sport of soccer. I did a few years in the MLS Development Academy with DC United as well as the Philadelphia Union. And then I've also done some time as an athletic trainer with the U.S. youth and adult national teams. So a lot of soccer experience, a lot of all-around experience. I've also had some experience as a strength and conditioning coach, so we'll touch on that later.
Brilliant, thank you. And same question, Greg. Tell us about yourself, mate.
Well, I'm from Northern California, specifically a town called Fremont here in the Bay Area, East Bay to be specific. Now live in Livermore, just about 15 minutes over the hill now. Basically grew up around the sport, played college soccer, played at the University of San Diego under scholarship. Actually, how I got into strength and conditioning was through some injuries that I suffered going into college. So basically went out after college, kind of started my own business, did my own thing for about a decade. And then when I was 30, I had the opportunity to join the San Jose Earthquakes when they started back up, and basically spent a decade with them on the performance side of things. And now kind of retired consulting from home, playing Mr. Mom under this whole COVID thing. So it's been enjoyable.
You're playing Mr. Mom as well. Love it. Brilliant.
Hey, and by the way, Rob, it took 10 years for my wife to take my last name and put it next to hers, so don't worry about it.
So I did well then, right? Brilliant.
Yes, well done.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. All right, so Maren, we'll start with you a little bit here. You've traveled the world. You've had so many fantastic experiences, and you've worked with some big names, some superstars. Can you tell us a little bit about how your experiences have shaped who you are today?
Definitely. One of the biggest ways that it shaped me is that I've worked in every setting, in every budget, and every access to facilities that you could imagine. I've worked with nothing. I've worked with everything you could ask for. I've covered future World Cup winners out of a hotel room in Croatia. I've covered Paralympic athletes at the Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista, California. So my style of athletic training is highly adaptable according to what facilities we have and according to what equipment we have. So that's really shaped my versatility. Beyond that, the variety of athletes that I've covered has really shaped me as well. With U.S. soccer, I was with everybody from the U14s all the way up to the U23s. So we're talking insanely talented 13-year-olds who are all elbows and knees, all the way up to they're basically right on the cusp of winning a World Cup. They just need a little bit of molding and shaping by the coaches, and they're well on their way. So that's really made all of my experience just that much more varied in terms of what I can do for the athletes, because I've worked with every single different level.
Brilliant, thank you. And then Greg, we'll switch over to you here. You've worked at the top, the pinnacle level of soccer here in the US. Why is strength and conditioning so important in the modern game?
That's actually a really good question, and it's funny because even in the modern game, just recently has become a very important part of it. So when you kind of just look at the stats, and I'll throw something back at you, Rob, real quick to play some tennis. What's the percentage of time you have the ball on your foot in a soccer game?
1-2 minutes, somewhere around there.
Yeah, about
typically.
3%. About 3% of the match. You're right, and so
Right.
that means 95% of the match is played without a ball on your foot. So that means you need to learn how to be an athlete to be able to play the game. Not only an endurance athlete, but a sprinter, a marathon runner, a strong leaper, jumper, rebounder, all that type of stuff. So obviously, those types of things are what played into my experiences, right? Is you realize the game is actually more than just kicking a soccer ball around. A lot of it actually has to do with how you move, where you have energy leaks, can you be efficient? And do you have the endurance to last 90 minutes and those types of things? So, again, just like your previous guest said, a lot of this comes from your experience of being on the ground, right? And working with the environment you have. And just like her, we've worked with bands off of fences, and I've had access to multi-million-dollar facilities. And you just have to deal with what you have to deal with, and you just get going, right, and get your job done. And that's kind of what we're here to do. So whatever you throw at us, I know you're obviously putting together a team that can handle it. That's for sure.
Yep, and that's definitely the plan. So I've got a follow-up question here. So we'll put with that tennis. I'm gonna hit a backhand half volley back at you. So how do you plan to put this into effect, the strength conditioning with pre-college development academy? Obviously, we've got the 3 locations. You're one guy. You can't split yourself into thirds and head off. North, southeast, and southwest, can you? So how are you gonna get this done, really?
Well, the answer to that is actually technology. And we've seen what technology can really do over the last decade in our sport in general. The introduction of technology just to the U.S. and obviously soccer was kind of the first one to take it on in the U.S. really. Now you see basketball using it, football using it, right? So the implementation of technology allows you to make very, very good decisions. Obviously, you need data first, and as the data compiles, you can really make a lot of good decisions. And it helps someone like me. It helps someone like Miriam too, because you can set point markers and things like that. So if anybody ever gets hurt, where you can return them to play and how strong they have to be back there. You can set markers for goals, kids to attain their goals. What you guys are doing here at PCDA, right? You're building men and athletes at the same time. And all this stuff plays into it. So technology, they'll have apps where they have to check in, answer questionnaires. They'll have workouts, maybe even pre-workout routines, maybe even warm-up routines, and things like that, where they're going to be doing something every day, not just on the field, but probably off the field too. So basically just utilizing all the technologies that are out there, finding the obviously ones that fit with our program that allow us to operate in our satellite locations and make sure that we can obviously do this efficiently and effectively.
Brilliant. Mm-hmm. So on the topic of technology, I'm gonna switch over to Maren. Maren, wearable tech, it's become a big thing. Obviously, how does that help you as an athletic trainer? In the realm of soccer.
So, especially with how PCDA is going to do things on a 10-month season, it's going to be all about load management. Mm-hmm. A big reason why NCAA, NAIA, just college athletes get hurt so much more than 10-month season soccer players is because they're playing 2 games a week. They're practicing the other 5 days. They're running way too much. We're talking stress fractures. We're talking ligament ruptures. The load is way too much, and we're going to use the wearable tech to keep track of how much they're running during the games, keep track of how hard they're going to practice, so we can keep them accountable for sure, but also we can look at those midfielders, we can look at those wingbacks and say, your mileage was the highest on the team yesterday. We're gonna tailor your recovery to that. We're gonna tailor your practice the day after to that, and we're gonna be able to really limit, if not completely eliminate, those overuse injuries. many studies have shown that more injuries happen late in the season, more injuries happen later in the game. That's because of load. That's because they're either not prepared for those loads or they've just overdone it for that week. So using the GPS units is going to help us really get the most out of our athletes while keeping them healthy at the same time.
Brilliant. Greg, have you got anything to add on that? Like, obviously, we touched on technology a little bit for sports performance, but you know, in regards to you and Maren working together, in regards to load and injury prevention and stuff like that.
No, I mean, she really hit it on the nose. I mean, player load and player management is important. You know, I kind of look at my role, you know, when I was with the Earthquakes as an asset manager, you know, and my job was to either grow the, you know, as an asset manager, you look at your portfolio and you see what you have. Like, I have young talent. I got to get them stronger so they can be durable and last the game, right? I have some older fellas, right? I got to manage them, just got to keep them strong. And technology, like she said, in regard to monitoring player load, you know, exertion, all this type of thing. I mean, when technology came onto the game, basically came to us, it really changed the game for us. I mean, within 3 years, I know at the Quakes, we saved our club over $1 million in days missed, you know, from games and training. So really, it just, you know, we used to kind of sniff and eyeball test this, you know, when we didn't have technology. And now you actually have hard facts and data that you can always lean on. And that really changes it keeps you from guessing, and it has you make actual decisions. So it just really helps in all aspects, whether it be, you know, rehab, whether it be player load management, whether it be strength and conditioning, you know, it really, really helps. Technology has just massively changed the game.
Fantastic. Maren, over to you. In your opinion, what is the relationship between strength and conditioning and sports medicine?
In my opinion, they're two branch offs of the same exact tree. They're so closely related and they benefit each other so much. The way that I've always run my programs, the way that we're going to run this program, strength and conditioning is the first step. It's the ground floor. We do the strength and conditioning right, the athletic training, the sports medicine. A, it's going to be easier because there's not going to be as many injuries to take care of. And B, it's going to build off of each other. And the strength and conditioning coach and the athletic trainer are going to work together in order to get these athletes back from injury and be fitter than they were before they got hurt. That's always been my goal rehab wise is, okay, you're hurt, you're going to come back, you're going to be a better athlete than before you even got hurt. And a big reason for that is they got hurt because they might have some improvements that they needed to make anyways. So in terms of like injury prevention, strength and conditioning and sports medicine depend on each other. And in two different programs now, I was lucky enough to be the strength and conditioning coach as well as the athletic trainer in those two programs. And this is women and men college soccer. I had 0 non-contact ACL ruptures, 0 surgeries that weren't due to pre-existing conditions. And so you do it right, you're going to stay out of the athletic training room, you're going to stay out of the doctor's office, and you're going to become an extremely talented high-level athlete who knows how to use their body to play soccer well and to protect yourself.
Yeah. Greg, I was going to ask you if you've got anything to add on top of that, but I saw you doing the I'm in a car thing. So
no, Robbie, I mean, she said it so perfectly. I mean, you would be, you know, I think 20 years ago, you would have said that they're two different kind of disciplines. And I would say, you know, especially in the last decade, they have just really kind of intertwined together because like she said, I mean, every day I was with my training staff every morning before we even started letting players in the play. Every Friday we reviewed the whole week. I mean, we were constantly in touch with each other, constantly working with each other, because there'd be days where they're like, hey, we're too overflowed. You know, can you take a couple guys? run them around on the field, and I can't tape ankles. Obviously, I'm not qualified to do that, but I can definitely manage your players, and make sure they don't do anything stupid while they're out on the field. So, you just work together. They're probably the best friends out of the assistant coach and the head coach. These guys have just as good a relationship as those two do, really, in a locker room, in a staff setting. Yeah.
Brilliant.
And actually, piggybacking off of that, just for the record, Greg said that I can do his job, but he can't do mine.
Yep.
So I just want us to file that away somewhere.
It's very true. I can't tape
in the back pocket. We've got it.
ankles.
It's live and recorded. So yeah.
The way that soccer science has advanced, if you do rehab right, you're doing strength and conditioning at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's why they're so closely related. The way that I do rehab, and this is a little bit off the cuff and it's a little bit weird to a lot of athletic trainers, I'm not rehabbing your ankle. I'm rehabbing everything. Because the gains you get on one ankle that is already healthy are going to translate to the other one. So in that way, they're also just so closely intertwined, because strength and conditioning is not only injury prevention, but it is also rehab at the same time.
Yeah, Robbie, and if you don't mind me throwing something in there too, and because I agree with everything, the cardinal sin for our side of the fence is having a player get re-injured when he enters a game right after coming off an injury. I mean, that's a pink slip just waiting in your locker room if you let something like that happen. So you almost make it upon yourself that guy's fitter after he gets hurt than he was before he got hurt. And that's just the way you approach the game. And it sounds like, we definitely have very similar philosophies when it comes to that type of stuff. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've got questions going around my head all the time, and you guys are just talking, and I'm just going into a trance listening to you guys. And I hope our viewers are taking notes, because this is brilliant. I'm really enjoying myself here. So, all right, quick one. I know this story quite well. There is Maren was on a trip. I can't remember what country it was, but you saw somebody quite famous, and there is a report that this guy's 6 foot or 5'11", and these different profiles, they've got him at different heights all the time. But the first thing she said when she got off the plane was, "I saw this guy. He's tiny." It's a lie. Who was it? Tell us the story, Maren.
Well, I was actually in Dallas, and it was Ronaldinho, and he's literally like 5'7". Like I stood like 5 feet away from him. He's a very small human, which makes me think that they're all I actually saw Xavi Alonso in Qatar, and that dude is even smaller. He's got to be like 5'6". They're all soccer players are tiny.
One day you should stand up next to Ibrahimovic on a field, and
he's not
that
tiny.
will change your whole dynamic of what a real man looks like, because he is an oak tree. That man, holy smokes! Because you say it's exactly right. You see these guys on TV, they're superstars, right? And then all of a sudden, you meet them in real life, and you're like, oh yeah, he's only like 5'8". You know what I mean? But you see Ibrahimovic, and he's like, he is a tree trunk, and that's no lying. He looks exactly like he does on TV.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
All right, Greg, over to you. I've got one last question here before we open up the floor for viewers to ask away and put you guys on the spot, so you'll enjoy that. But who are some of your biggest influences?
Wow. I mean, I kind of, I appreciate you kind of sending me that question earlier, because I wanted to make sure, there, from a standpoint of outside of my realm looking in, a guy named Tim Gabbett from Australia, who has all been kind of 20 years of GPS knowledge. I mean, I've got to sit down with him a few times on a different occasion, and he just really opened my mind in how to utilize technology and use it. From a standpoint of strength and conditioning around the sport of soccer or football, Tony Strudwick from Man U, who's now with Sheffield Wednesday, right? A guy named Sam Irth, who was with Tottenham back with Harry and now has been with Man City ever since. Just to see how these guys actually took modern strength and conditioning and applied it to the game of football was pretty impressive to me. And then I do have to say, some of my peers that I worked with in the MLS, you know, a guy like B. Lee, his name's Brian Lee, but B. Lee worked at Toronto, worked with me at San Jose, but he literally takes on the same philosophy as Merriam. I mean, it was like a shell shock to see this come in, you know, 9 years ago for me. You know, a guy named Derek Lawrence, a guy named Mateus, who used to work for KC Sporting and now is with Miami. A guy named Evan, who's now with the Sacramento Kings. My boy Corey, who's now with the Phoenix Suns and was at Stanford. Another guy named Brooks Hamilton, who was with the Columbus Crew. You know, these guys were all part of shaping who I am and what I am. And, you know, it was really nice to have the pleasure of working with those guys for so many years in the league and kind of building what I would call the performance and the strength conditioning that is in the MLS now. Because when I first started, I was probably one of 5 coaches out of 20 teams. You know, it didn't even exist back in those days. So to see where it is now, every team has one, has multiple. It's been, I owe those guys a lot of credit in my development, but not just mine, but in the league's development in and of itself too. So I give those guys a lot of credit.
So when we were talking earlier this week, when I was doing some fact finding to figure out what I'm going to actually ask you guys, you told us a story. I'm not going to mention the institution, but you told us a story about a Division 1 school and what they do with kids or their freshmen if they're struggling in the weight room and stuff like that. Can you touch on that so like our viewers can see what can happen at the top level if you're not quite ready to get there? What happens?
Yeah, no, I mean, not just that institution, but I can even tell you also, you know, from our institution being the Quakes that I used to work at. I mean, basically what you do is you got to figure these guys are investing a lot of money in their athletes when they're either signing somebody to a contract or obviously giving somebody a college scholarship, right? They look at it as an investment. And so, you know, this institution, for instance, you know, when you would come in, if you were just like physically a little bit immature compared to what you should be, and you weren't moving the type of kind of KPIs that are expected to play that sport, whether it be swimming, football, you name it, right? Basically, this institution would shut you down and just basically build you as an athlete. And then basically when that year was over after you redshirted, you were then all of a sudden a man on the same competing field as those guys that were juniors and seniors now that you're waiting to play against. So I give them a lot of credit, man. They took the time. They dedicate their time to their athletes. They have one of the lowest injury rates, you know, in the Pac-12, by the way, not to give it away. And they also have a lot of trophies on the wall for a lot of the sports they play. Not just obviously soccer, the game we're talking about here. So just in general, how they do business there. And it's the same thing with us. When we sign a 16-year-old kid who's not Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo, you know, his job is to get stronger. His job is to become a better athlete and learn how to be a pro. And, you know, that probably takes more time in the gym than it does on the soccer field because they're signing the contract because they're good soccer players already. Now they need to become good athletes and good professionals. And that's where we kind of come in from our standpoint. So that's kind of my 2 cents in a little bit there, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's perfect. All right, we're going to open up the forum now for our viewers. We've got a question here. How does that help athletes coming into PCDA instead of college?
Who do you want to swing at this one, Maren? You want to go for it, and I'll add to it.
Maren, you're muted.
Sorry, you go for it, Greg. I'll follow up.
How does this help athletes? Well, there's a couple reasons I think it helps athletes. One, this is a little more kind of being biased because I'm a strength coach by heart, is when you walk into a college and you actually know how to move correctly, a strength coach is just like, oh, this is a dream. I don't have to waste a half a year, maybe even a full year teaching this guy how to move correctly. Now I can just load him up and get him stronger. And being strong is actually probably one of the precursors, or I shouldn't say precursors, but one of the foundation blocks that keeps you from getting injured is being strong and durable. And strength is a big part of that. So how does it help? I think what you'll see is, you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're talking about a demographic of player that's kind of right on the cusp of being good enough, but not right there yet. And a lot of that reason is probably because of physicality. So what does it help you do? It brings you that physicality that you need to walk right into a D1 program and not lose a step and probably be way more advanced than the people that are coming in, you know, that are getting recruited just with you.
Brilliant. Maren, you got anything to add to that one?
Yeah. In my experience, just like dabbling in the high school scene, like we've lived in Philadelphia, DC, Texas, Colorado, Kansas, Iowa. Strength coaches in high schools, they're not necessarily not capable of doing their jobs, but what they are very good at it is usually training the football team. Not to mention the fact that these soccer players that we're getting into PCDA have most likely been playing high school soccer and club soccer. There's no strength coaches in club soccer. So these kids have so much development that they can do in the weight room because they haven't been given the chance yet, unless, you know, the very isolated, they're at an MLS academy or they have a lot of money and their parents are paying for them to go to the gym every week. So there's so much development that we can do just by putting them in the weight room for the first time and teaching them what to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Next question that's come in is for Maren. What is the value of patient rehab, patient as in having patience, versus rushed rehab?
It's as simple as the value between having a 3-month season and a 10-month season. There's been multiple times over the past few months where I've told a coach, if the national championship was tomorrow, I would play him, but it's not. So we're going to take our time and we're going to make sure that this athlete gets better and then he stays better. You can rush a rehab and you can do it the old school way and stick a kid's ankle in a bucket of ice 3 times a day until he's so numb that he can go out there and play a basketball game. But is that going to have long-term value? And is he going to mess up his ankle even worse later on the road? Absolutely. So the patient rehab, and that's actually a really good way to put it, it gets him better and it stops him from re-injuring it. And just to completely toot my own horn, I've had multiple kids come to me after more than one ACL rupture and say, if I've done this one, I'm done. I'm retiring. And then I talk him out of it and then I get him back and not a single one as of yet has ruptured again.
So, and that it comes down to having patience in the rehab then, I'm guessing, is that?
Yeah.
Talk us through that.
Well, it's just, sorry, I guess I kind of went off on a tangent there a little bit. You got to take your time because the body, everything, we were taught in athletic training college that you can't make the body heal faster. You can just improve the environment for healing. And that's what we're doing. We're showing the tissues how to heal. We're giving them time to completely heal. And the tissues take a lot longer to heal than most people think. I just had to tell a kid the other day, your collarbone is actually going to take a year to completely heal from its surgery and fracture. People don't understand that people might be coming back after a couple weeks from a hamstring strain, but that hamstring is not all the way better. You really need to take your time, and we're going to have that time in a 10-month season to get the kid all the way back.
Okay. So I've just come up with a question now, and this one's for Greg. Greg, let's say Robbie, goalkeeper, dislocates his shoulder. He's in the weight room, in the athletic training room with Maren, getting his treatment and his rehab and stuff like that. How would you plan on keeping Robbie fit? So when he, when he's cleared by Maren to get back on the field, he can get back into it.
Yeah, well, it's actually, it would be working as a team. So working with Miriam and seeing what he actually can do and what he can move around in a gym setting. I mean, basically, and again, I haven't quite had a lot of one-on-ones with Miriam, so I don't know all her philosophy, but I can tell that we've kind of either worked for similar people or we come from the same book, basically. Because, I mean, like she said, I mean, yeah, maybe your shoulders hurt, but you can lift your legs all day long. I can tie, bands around you. I can get you on a board. I can have you jumping. There's a ton of things that you can do that probably won't cause any pain to your shoulder. and we can keep you strong and fit. I mean, you can ride a stationary bike, you don't have to move your arms. You can just sit there. We'll keep you aerobically fit, and then we'll hopefully get you stronger along the way too. But again, it comes back to the original conversation we were having about working as a team, right? I don't just go off in my own sphere and do my own thing. Obviously a player's got some type of mobility issue, and we need to make sure we can get them to work while not hurting them, and hopefully helping them get better at the same time.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So one more question for you, Greg.
Yes.
Got a shirt just above your head.
What was
Wondolowski.
that? Oh yeah.
The shirt above your head.
The man, the myth, the legend, as they say around here.
There's a story behind that shirt, isn't there?
Oh yeah, that's a Gold Cup shirt. I think that's I don't know what game that specifically is from. It might be from the one that he got a brace in, but I think he scored 6 goals in that tournament and was awarded a golden boot for the tournament that year. I want to say maybe 16 or 18, but I want to say 16 sounds more around the right time frame. But no, I mean, listen, I had the pleasure of working with a guy like Chris for a long time. I've obviously had the pleasure of working with a lot of guys over the years. But the one thing I'll say about Chris, and this kind of may stay kind of into the field that we're kind of talking to with the PCDA type kid, right? Here's a kid that went to Chico State, by the way. Who's Chico State in regards to soccer? I mean, does it fall on the radar? No. You think of like UCLA, Virginia, right? All these big names. And then all of a sudden you see this kid, Wondolowski from Chico State. And what is he now? Well, he's the Golden Boot owner in the MLS. It's crazy, but I'll tell you why. The guy spends 20 to 30 minutes every day working on his craft, and his craft is finishing. And, it's just amazing, I mean, and the other thing that's amazing about the guy, he's probably got one of the highest VO2 maxes I've ever seen in my life. That guy can run and keep running some more. So when you see him running around the field and you're like, man, striker, just stay up top. There's a reason why he can do it all day long. So, no, I mean, it's just funny that, that's the guy. He's on the top of my pinnacle there with, I got Anibal and Victor Bernardes, Honduran and Panamanian internationals too. Great pros, all of them. And that's why they're on the wall, because they are great pros. They go about their business. They work in the gym. They work after practice. They're great pros. And that's why they hang on the wall, because they were fun to work with. And they obviously had great careers and still are having great careers, some of them. So that's kind of the story behind that. So I'll kind of dip my head a little bit just so everybody can see it. And but no, it goes. Listen, your story's not told until it's over. So, if you got a dream and you want to chase it, you fight like hell to get it done. And obviously, there's an example of one guy who, kept fighting like hell. And now look at him, U.S. national team, World Cup player, Golden Boot winner in the, the MLS. I mean, it's crazy. And he lives like down the street, it's amazing. So it's just a blast, Yeah, it's funny. Yeah.
Brilliant. One last question then, and this is to both of you, and I'll let you fight over who goes first and who follows up. But
ladies first.
Ladies first. There we go. So you both see value in the program to develop late developers. Can you, build on that statement, I guess?
Well, a really good word is build, because I really love building athletes. Like, I had a kid a couple years ago that, Rob, you remember him? He kind of ran like Forrest Gump. I looked at him and I was like, I want to fix him. And like, I love.
Was he one of my players? Because if it was, then
yes, he was.
There's several of them.
No, Rob, it was you, bud. It was you. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't run.
No, like I love building kids from the ground up, and I love a challenge, and I love developing them. And my favorite thing as an athletic trainer is to see a kid come back from an injury that I've rehabbed him, and to see him succeed. And I see PCDA as a way of getting all of these talented kids, providing them with the strength coaching, with the athletic training, with the soccer coaching, with all the kinds of coaching that they haven't been able to expose to yet, and build them into something really great, and to build their future for them too.
You mean like someone like Kevin Foster?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You want to tell that story? We've got time for it.
Okay. So he's this Islander kid. He's from the Caymans, right? But he went to
Jamaican, living in the Caymans.
Jamaican living in the Caymans. sweetest kid you've ever met. But when we got him at our little school in Kansas, he, not great grades, not much, didn't really do much, not much of a work ethic. The spring break, am I allowed to tell that part? The spring break part?
Yeah, go ahead.
He went to LA on spring break and he got shot in the arm because somebody decided to have an aunt in Compton. So I rehabbed him all summer. Never rehabbed a shattered forearm from a bullet before.
Wow.
He played for us. We got him to a school. The next year, they won the national championship.
Wow.
And then he's now, him and a couple of other players are now playing for the national team in the Caymans. So,
yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I do like to bring them down a peg or two with that and basically say, just because you own a pair of boots, that's why you're on the national team in the Cayman Islands. If you own a pair of boots, you're on the team, But just keeps them on the ground. So everybody needs that. So the value in the program to develop late developers, Greg, build on that for me.
Well, I guess, I have also, obviously, outside of being a strength coach, I've kind of run my realm through the youth coaching ranks too. And, I did cycles of 16 to 18 and then drop back, start 16, driving through 18, and you were trying to get kids, as many as you could into college, that had the capability of playing there, and you see so many kids that are just so close, they have the soccer IQ, they have the skill set, the technical ability, but they just maybe need another year, whether that be in the gym or just physically maturing in general. You know what I mean? And, and these kids get looked over, and I understand why. I get it. I played at a D1 program. We were in the top 25, and, you just bring in stallions. You're bringing in stallion after stallion after stallion after stallion, right? And some of these kids are late bloomers and just aren't stallions at 17 years old. I mean, not everybody can be LeBron James, you know what I mean? So,
right.
But there's plenty of good players in the NBA still, that went a different route. And, for me, this is one of those missings, and that's why I'm excited to obviously be a part of this, is that, there's this missing in U.S. soccer. If you're not, that person at 18, you just die off on a vine here, and it's nice to see somebody actually taking a shot and trying to change that aspect, because we know there's a couple good players that we saw when they were 18 that if they just had another year or two to develop or become a man, whether that's physically, mentally, whatever that is, right? Boy, what a player they could have been possibly. And so, that's what I think the PCDA brings. It gives you that opportunity. And the other great thing is, guess what? You're going to walk out with an AA and be 20 and only be a freshman, and you have 4 years of playing eligibility. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, most people are, by the time they're doing that, they've already wasted 2 playing years. So, I mean, that's one of the best things about this is you're a man mentally and physically, and now you have 4 years to go play the game you love. Plain and simple. Drop the mic. No, I'm just kidding.
That is perfect timing, because we're over a little bit, but I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like, you do your 2 years, you can become a man, or at least so you have a fighting chance to compete, to play. If it's not developing physically, then you're developing mentally, and that's why we're here, folks. The PCDA, that's why we're here, is to level up, to bridge the gap to your next level, and that's what we want to do. We're hiring the best staff in the country. I mean, we've got Maren Carroll, MS, ATC, LAT, bunch of other initials behind that. I can keep going. I mean, there's not many universities she's not been to. And then we've got Greg, D1 athlete, MLS head strength conditioning coach, and we're just going to keep adding the quality, guys. So Maren, Greg, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to having you both on again soon.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. Have a nice weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye.
Well, folks, that's it. Join us again at 8 p.m. Central Time next week for our next episode. This is Robbie Carroll. Have a good night.